Mr. Quigley for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, lately, the People's House, this House of Representatives, has been called a lot of other things: dysfunctional, unpopular, gridlocked. But one word inspired by Charles Dickens seems particularly fitting these days: bleak. In 1852, Charles Dickens wrote the novel Bleak House about the dismal failures of the British judicial system. The title Bleak House refers to the main courthouse, above which reads the warning: suffer any wrong that can be done you, rather than come here. Given the recent inaction and perhaps dysfunction, I feel a similar moniker may need to be placed above our own door. This body has reached a point where our inaction is no longer harmless. Our inability to act and to govern is having real and harmful effects. We are on the verge of causing really great suffering. Take, for example, health care. We passed health care reform 3 years ago, and while everyone does not like all of its provisions, the fact is it's the law of the land. It's not going away. But rather than working together to improve the bill, as has been done with every other major piece of legislation, such as Medicare Part D, many in this House are not only refusing adjustments, they are trying to stop its implementation altogether. There are efforts underway to dissuade young people from signing up for insurance, to prevent assisters from helping folks access insurance, and to scare seniors. Rather than coming together to improve our health care system, the dysfunction of this body is actually harming the health and well-being of millions of people. Take the inability to pass a continuing resolution as another example of how the gridlock of this body is hurting our country. What was once a routine act of debating funding levels and priorities and passing a budget has devolved into hijacking of government funding and over the funding of health care. This is a game of chicken that risks shutting down the entire government and injuring millions of Americans. Leaders on the other side of the aisle even understand the devastating effect of such a shutdown. Speaker John Boehner said in April 2011 that, quote, if you shut down the government, it'll end up costing more than you say because you interrupt contracts, end of quote. Yet despite such warnings, we continue to risk a deeply damaging government shutdown. Efforts to increase the debt ceiling should serve as another sober reminder of how dysfunctional and harmful this body has become. The debt limit has been raised 78 times, including 49 times by Republican presidents and 29 times by Democratic presidents. Once again, what was once standard operating procedure has become a hostage for extreme positions. Many in this House are willing to risk the full faith and credit of the United States in order to push their extremism. Defaulting on our debt would cause irreparable damage to our recovery and risk sending us back into recession. As George W. Bush's chief economic advisor, Keith Hennessy, put it, not raising the debt limit could lead to, quote, a catastrophic event, end of quote. Still, we continue down this dangerous path. And these are just a few topical examples. The list of items we are unable to tackle goes on and on. Tax reform, entitlement reform, reauthorization of No Child Left Behind, transportation and infrastructure funding, immigration reform, postal reform, a decent farm bill, common sense gun violence legislation. We are indeed making Truman's do-nothing Congress look positively busy. Yesterday, Senator Cruz quoted Dr. Seuss. And today, I would like to do the same. But I am drawing from a different Seuss tale, the story of the Zacks. For those not familiar, the Zacks is about two Zaxes going two different directions who meet face to face. Each Zax refuses to go any direction but the direction it was headed. The Zaxes stand so long that a highway overpass is built over them, and the story ends with each Zax still standing there, unbudged in their tracks. From Dickens to Seuss, great writers can teach us and warn us about the dangers of obstinacy and intransigence. Refusing to act has surely led us to a very bleak place indeed. Let's not end up like the Zaxes, unbudged in our tracks, unable to tackle the great challenges of our time. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.